Thank you. I now call this regular meeting of the Board of Education to order at 7:04 p.m. We'll take a moment of silence to be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'll have the coordinator call the roll.
Mr. Dixon?
Present.
Mr. Rollins?
Here.
Mr. Scrivano?
Here.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Here.
Mr. Siegel?
Here.
Mr. Connor?
Here.
Mr. Escobedo?
Here.
With 7 present, we have a quorum.
Before we go any further, I'd like to thank Rod and Connor, who are in the back working behind the scenes to produce the board's broadcast on Channel 20. Thank you guys. As always, you do a great job. The first order of business tonight is to read a proclamation or resolution. Proposed resolution to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Illinois being the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment. Whereas Illinois had long been at the forefront of the movement to provide women the right to vote, whereas in Illinois, the first women's suffrage association was established in Earlville in LaSalle County in 1855, just 7 years after the first Women's Rights Convention in Seneca Falls, New York, which called for suffrage for women. Whereas the first statewide suffrage organization, the Illinois Women's Suffrage Association, was established in 1869, becoming the Illinois Equal Suffrage Association in 1891. Whereas in 1891, Illinois enacted a law allowing women the right to vote for elective school offices. Whereas in 1913, Illinois enacted the Presidential Suffrage Bill, which gave Illinois women the right to vote in federal and municipal elections, not otherwise restricted to men under the Illinois Constitution. And whereas within the enactment of that law, Illinois became the first state east of the Mississippi River to give women such right to vote for the presidency of the United States, and is credited with being a major positive influence in advancing the women's suffrage movement in the United States. And whereas on June 4th, 1919, the proposed 19th Amendment of the United States Constitution was passed by the United States Congress and sent to the states for ratification. Whereas 100 years ago, on June 10th, 1919, Illinois became the first state to ratify the 19th Amendment 1 hour prior to Wisconsin. Whereas Illinois led the way for the necessary 3/4 of the states to ratify the 19th Amendment, which became part of the Constitution on August 26, 1920. Now, therefore, the Rockford Public Schools declares June 10th, 2019, a day to celebrate women's right to vote and the important role Illinois played in achieving that right in the United States. Thank you. We will now move on to recognitions and celebrate outstanding contributions of our students and staff. Mr. Earl Dotson, Jr.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, board members. As you know, we are always excited when we have outstanding student athletes in the building and all the wonderful adults who support them. So let's jump right in. Once again, Rockford Public Schools had strong showings at various state-level competitions this spring. To kick us off first, we are going to start with the Science Olympiad. Eisenhower Middle School Science Olympiad team competed in the state tournament in April at the University of Illinois. The team took 9th place overall in a field of 50 schools. Yeah. The team also brought home medals for finishing 1st, 2nd, and 5th place in events. Congratulations to the Science Olympiad team. Where you at, Science Olympiad? Come on up. coaches. All right, go ahead. I'll have them ready by the time. All right, that's the way to get it started. All right, coming up next, we have the State Geography B. Thurgood Marshall School 8th grader Calvin Smith qualified for the National Geographic State Geography B competition in March. Calvin is among the top 100 students in the state. Congratulations to Calvin Smith. Calvin, you here? Let's give it up anyway. Good. Woo! All right. IESA State Track and Field, Flynn Middle School 7th grader Rashid Johnson took 2nd place in the 100-meter dash and 7th in the 200-meter dash at the IESA Boys State Track and Field Tournament. Rashid also ran the anchor leg of the 4x100-meter relay team that finished in 2nd place in the state. Rashid ran with DeTerrace Dotson, Jaden Green, and Damian Parker Moreland. Flynn Middle School 7th grader Douglas Plaxico finished 6th in the state in the boys' 110-meter hurdles. Overall, the Flynn Falcons finished in 5th place as a team. Congratulations. For the girls, Eisenhower Middle School 8th grader Jada Cruz finished 8th in the 100 meters. The other state competitors include, from Eisenhower, Natalia Stallings for the 100 meters and 200 meters, Brandon Lawson, 800 meters, Jada Cruz, 100 meters, Jolena Sight, 100 meters, 200 meters, and 400 meters, and Jaden Thornton, 200 meters, and the relay team, 400 by 100 meter relay team of Amanda Curry, Natalia Stallings, Jalen Craigs Ingram, and Jada Cruz. Are you all here in the building? No? Let's give it up for them anyway. Yeah. All right, somebody here. All right, up next, for Kennedy, we have the 4x100 meter relay team of Essence Horton Graves, Makia Marzette, Neva Curtis, and Malia Williams. The 4x100 meter relay team of Anaya Bell, Jolene Williams, Sierra Esper, and Alexia Gonzalez. Sierra Esper for the long jump. Y'all here? Yeah. All right, woo! Did I get your name right? Did I mess it up? Did I mess it up? I'm sorry. All right. For Thurgood Marshall, we have Cassandra Carpenter for the pole vault. Flynn, we have the 4x200 meter relay team of Jameer Hightower, Trent Lewis, Zaire Lee, Douglas Plaxico, and alternate Shawnquez Simmons. Michelle Gassman for the 400 meters, 800 meters, and 1600 meters, and Adrian Agee for the 100 meters. Are you all here? Woo! So IESA bowling. Once again, Rockford Public Schools was well represented at the IESA State Bowling Tournament for both girls and boys. In girls bowling, Flynn Middle School 8th grader Ashley Harkey finished 9th in the state with a total pinfall of 1,795. Other state competitors include Flynn's Leanne Severson, Fallon Perry, and Fallon Perry, and Madison Anderson, and West Middle School's Alyssa Ballard and Isabella Leathers Donaldson. In boys bowling, Eisenhower Middle School 8th grader Devin Skridla finished first in state with a total pinfall of 2,090, just 2 pins ahead of the second place finisher. Other state competitors include Jermanian Simmons, Jamarion, thank you, Mickey Dobbs, and Jacob Wadsworth from Risa Middle School, Job Sahlberg, Campbell Russo, Jacob Smith, Wyatt Derry, and Nick Reeves from Eisenhower Middle School. Then there's Charlie Hunt, Tyler Novak, Austin Morris, and Caden Horton from West Middle School. And then Carver Villarreal, all right, Eli Bowers, Jacob Thomas, and Riddick Johnson from Flynn Middle School. Then Damian Gunn and Shane Mosley from Lincoln Middle School. Please congratulate these wonderful student athletes and their accomplishments. Congratulations.
You realize Eisenhower Boys won state too, right?
I'm sorry, I just read what's on.
Okay, I think you should mention that real quick.
Okay. Did they? They won state?
Eisenhower Boys won state.
Eisenhower Boys won state. Congratulations. Congratulations, Coach. Congratulations, Coach.
Thank you.
Someone good? All right, just give me the name. Got you. The coach wanted me to make sure that that Eisenhower won state. Is that right, Coach?
Right.
All right. All right. Eisenhower won state. Let's make sure we know that. Illinois Science Olympiad. 23 Auburn High School students competed among students from 50 schools in the Illinois Science Olympiad at the University of Illinois. Of the Knights, 13 students finished in 5th place of better in 28. Competitors, junior Victoria Wu and sophomore Fong Pham, brought home a state title in Chem Lab. The team finished 8th overall. Eduardo Rodriguez and Oscar Zolo finished 2nd in electric right stuff. Nam Pham and Dhruv Ramaswamy took 3rd in Wi-Fi lab and 5th overall. Competitors include, please bear with me, Victoria Wu, Fong Pham, Eduardo Rodriguez, Oscar Aranzalo, Nan Pham, Dhruv Ramaswamy, Rayuto Thew, Paranjay Gupta, Matt Lean, Wyatt Morris, Charlie Shriver, Wanaho Fan, Sophia Morris, Rochelle Watson, and Ryoto Thew. Please join me in congratulating these wonderful competitors. Are you here? All right, next up, IHSA Boys Track and Field. Auburn High School senior Surreal Holland won both the 100 and 200 meter titles at the IHSA Class 3A track and field sectional meet to qualify for the IHSA state tournament. His preliminary round results at Eastern Illinois University this past weekend didn't allow him to advance to the finals, but we're so proud of his accomplishments this season. Congratulations to Surreal Holland. Are you here, sir? Woo! All right, IHSA boys tennis. Auburn High School senior Quentin Navenhoven won the sectional tournament in singles play to qualify for the IHSA Class 2A boys state tennis meet. The trip marked his fourth consecutive state tournament. Auburn High School's Chris Park also qualified to compete at the state level in singles play as a sophomore. At the state tournament this past weekend, both Quentin and Chris lost their first matches, and Chris lost in the consolation bracket 6-3, 7-6. Quentin won his first two matches in the consolation bracket and was ultimately defeated 8-6 on Saturday in the third round of the consolation bracket. Congratulations to Quentin and Chris for making it to the tough state-level competition. We hope Chris makes a return trip to the state tournament next year, and Quentin will continue his tennis career at the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga. Congratulations to these outstanding student athletes. Are they here? All right, IHSA track and field. Guilford High School junior Shania Johnson was the only female athlete to represent RPS 205 at the IHSA Class 3A state track meet. Shania finished third in the Antioch sectional in the triple jump with a leap of 36.10 3/4. I guess that's really good. She surpassed the qualifying distance in preliminaries and skipped the finals to compete in other running events. Shania Johnson, let's give it up for Shania. Yeah. Bear with me, Shania. I'll find yours in 1 second, okay, please. All right. IHSA journalism. I know they're here. I saw Brittany. Yep. All right. East High School and Guilford High School sent students to compete in the IHSA journalism state finals after an impressive showing at sectionals. At state, East High School's team finished 10th overall. Congratulations to the following students. All right, bear with me, please. Braulio Saucedo. From East, he finished third in infographics. Martin Lozano from East finished in fourth place in advertising design. Ethan Stark from Guilford finished in fifth place in infographics. Taylor Bird and Peyton Fitchie from East finished in fourth place in yearbook theme development. Maddie Miller from East finished in 5th place in yearbook layout double-page spread, and Jonathan Jurgens from Guilford competed in broadcast news. Jackson Wyatt from East competed in review writing, and Anna Cifuentes from East competed in yearbook caption writing. Congratulations to these students on their outstanding accomplishments, and congratulations to their families, friends, teachers, and coaches and staff who have supported them all season. Let's give it up for the IHSA journalism students. Woo! Congratulations. Oh. Congratulations. 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 Thank you for correcting me. Thank you. And Mrs. McCulloch, I won't forget. Let's give it up for all of the parents who are here and loved ones and aunts, uncles, grandparents for their support. Thank you. And let's give it up one time for the coaches and teachers and principals and other educators. All right, and and please, if you will indulge me one more time, Randy Bay asked me to do this, and Randy's leaving, so Randy, of course, I'll do Randy.
Yeah.
I'll do it for Randy. Yes, absolutely, he deserves that. Randy wanted me to let everyone know that Steve Johnson is retiring after 25 years at Flynn. He attended Jefferson Junior High, Jefferson High in the Flynn building, taught at Auburn and Guilford for a total of 36 years helping Rockford's children. So congratulations to Steve Johnson on your retirement, and we wish you Godspeed in whatever you decide to do afterwards.
All right.
There he is. Randy Bay.
Retirement's always cracked up to be.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Earl. Great job, everybody. We appreciate you being here and all the great things that you've accomplished for our school district. We would now like to move on because we have set time aside for the public hearing to adopt the fiscal year 18-19 amended budget. We have no speakers that have signed up for that, so we will move on then to petitions and communications. I'm gonna wait just a minute till the room kind of empties out. This is the parent, this is the mom and dad, Riverdale. This is the other discipline case. 1920 budget. I thought that was off by a year. Correction, that was the 1920 budget. We're just about done with the 18-19 budget, aren't we? Yep. Okay, we are now at the petitions and communications portion of our meeting, when we invite the public to make comments. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution guarantees the right of citizens to petition their government, as well as provides for freedom of speech. Also, the Illinois School Code requires that there be a time at regular and special meetings for public comment. Thus, we are following those mandates during this petitions and communication portion of our agenda. According to Board Policy 2.230, the public comments portion of the meeting is limited to a total of 30 minutes. The board will not respond to comments at this time. If it is appropriate, you'll be contacted in a timely manner by staff in response to your questions. In order to allow sufficient time for the business of the board and to conduct our meetings in an efficient and effective manner, we are requesting that you comply with the guidelines that are posted, and each speaker will be allowed no more than 2 minutes to address the board. It's not appropriate to address individual board members or individual administrators or discuss matters that would otherwise be confidential in such open meetings. We just have 2 speakers groups tonight, so I will call the first one, and if the second one will move to the front, we can devote the maximum amount of time to our public comments. The clock on the wall over here will help you with your 2 minutes. We thank you for your interest and your cooperation with our guidelines. Our first speaker, and I apologize if I get this wrong, it's either Shandy or Shardy Calloway? Shardy? Sharday Calloway. Okay. Thank you. If you'll hit the microphone button.
Hi, my name is Sharday Calloway. I have a son that goes to Risa Middle School. I'm here today to just discuss my son. He's up for expulsion. I do feel that it is unfair. He is 12. He's in the 6th grade. He's never been expelled before. His 6th grade, can I say their names, administrators?
No, you can't.
Okay.
You can't.
So the 6th grade principal and the building principal recommended that he's expelled. I feel that, and I know for a fact he was not giving any type of intervention until I begged on numerous occasions. I have asked his 6th grade principal and the building principal via email and phone call more than several times. I have over 50 emails where I've begged them to help my son. Interventions, mentoring programs. They explained to me that my son is not considered that bad. He's not on medicine or he's not being treated for any type of disability, so they didn't feel he needed those services. When I expressed that I will be complaining, then they offered services a couple weeks ago. There was an incident where he did get in trouble, and now they want to expel my son. I feel my son he's a good boy, and I just feel like this entire situation has just discouraged him. He doesn't really want to do anything because of this. They sent him to Lincoln as a safety transfer. Risa has not sent my son any work. He's been there for over a week. They just threw him away, and I'm not sure if he'll go to the 7th grade or what will happen. I call them. They do not answer the phone. I leave them voicemails. I email them, and they don't respond to me. I have asked for conferences. It takes over a month to get a conference.
Okay, I'm sorry. Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next is Shannon Del Santo and James Funk, and you're going to speak together. And I will explain to you, you have the option of, as the 2 of you, for 2 minutes, or if you want to speak individually, you can have 2 minutes each. Which do you prefer?
It's okay, I'll just speak.
All righty, okay. So
It's the only time
James
being
Funk,
married
right?
you're allowed to speak
Okay.
first, so I'm going to take
Okay.
this. First off, thank you for seeing us today and giving us the opportunity to speak. We're the parents of a 6-year-old. His name is Caden Funk, and he is
Good.
autistic.
I don't want you to say his name. We need to prove. Okay.
Our son is autistic. He has anxiety disorder, and he has disorder which he cannot, certain things touch. He's a very good kid. He doesn't get in trouble. He's in kindergarten. When we moved him from Fairview, getting him ready, we did everything the administrative staff has asked us to do. We're very involved with our child's education, and we had taken him to the chance to get to know Lathrop School, get to know the principal, get to know his teachers. They hired a para for him, and we feel at this time that he was, basically what happened is he was discriminated against, is our feelings as parents, because there were certain things that Caden needs, and there are needs that need to, every kid in the autism spectrum is an umbrella, and they are all different. But one thing that everybody has to realize is he's being treated the same as a general student. And when they called us one day before he was supposed to start school and told him that he is no longer has a spot after they hired the para, after we did 2 weeks of different meetings with the teachers, with the administration, and with the principal, vice principal, and it wasn't until we expressed some concerns with how we're going to have to do certain things with Caden to make this work. And you don't hire a para knowing that a kid comes in, because that's a big step for a school district to make, and then call the student out.
Thank you, James. Shannon, did you want to go for a couple minutes? Thank you.
I'm just going to try to go right to the point here. Can you hear me? Okay, we are here tonight on behalf of our son. He is 6, and he does have autism and anxiety. We have tried to work with the RPS District 205 administration on our son's needs. However, we have been ignored and feel at this point their decisions on this matter are no longer about the best interest of our child, but the convenience of the administration staff. This makes us believe that our son is significantly being discriminated against. This problem was created last fall as Caden was wrongfully denied placement at his zone school, Lathrop. Prior to being told Caden would not attend Lathrop,
I would, Jen, just skip his name. We don't want that in
I'm
the
sorry.
record. Okay,
I'm
it's all right.
reading-
Okay.
I was reading.
We want to protect his identity. Okay.
Okay, that's
All
fine. Okay, as his parents, we took every measures we could to help with his transition from Fairview to Lathrop, as we knew this was going to be very hard on him, as he does not take change very well at all. We tried to prepare him by doing several tours at Lathrop, by introducing him to staff at Lathrop. We attended open houses. We also did a one-on-one with his new teacher. Lathrop hired his para for the school year, and we also met with her. Lathrop staff was very well aware Caden was coming to his school, to their school. We did all of this for 2 weeks. Then the phone call comes, Caden is no longer going to be assigned to Lathrop. Sorry. He is no longer going to be assigned to Lathrop. He gets moved over to Riverdale School, where he's been progressing, he's been doing great things. School year is coming to an end, and now they want to uplift him and move him back over to Lathrop. And he's progressing, he's doing well. We've tried to discuss this matter with administration, and all they keep telling us is zoning and his needs can be met at Lathrop, which we do not feel is true, because if you look in the ISBE, they need to also be considering that change to a child, the needs resulting from resistance and environmental change of a child or his daily routine. And also by them denying him last year, as of Chapter 7 in the ISBE, it also states that schools may not make placement decisions solely on the factors such as availability of space.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
So,
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Okay. We appreciate your interest and your cooperation with our guidelines. I will ask at this time, are there any board member comments? Mr. Connor.
I have 2 things of a personal nature. The first is a thank you to Jaime Escobedo. Yes. First is that he's been a tireless advocate for achievement and for students. And he's really made sure that that's part of our focus. He's also brought a technical and engineering background and has been very much an advocate in that area to make sure that we have the right programs for kids and at all levels, and has been able to articulate very well. And I've seen him in action going around the buildings, how technically astute he is. And the third is he's a friend, and I'll miss him.
Mr. Dixon.
I just want to piggyback on that as far as talking about Jaime. He's been pushing for achievement gap, And so when we first met him, we had sat down, had a conversation about different things we want to do. And he, right off back, wanted to push for achievement. And we built a relationship. And I'm going to miss you, man.
Mr. Siegel.
Not to be really unoriginal, but when I interviewed to get on the board, I was asked questions by all the sitting board members, and the only one I really remember, sorry y'all, is the one that Jaime asked.
Okay, wait, I had a great one.
I'm sure you did. I'll go back and watch it.
Okay.
But Jaime asked the question, what does grit mean to me? I don't really remember my answer, if that makes you all feel better, but the question stuck with me. And over the last 3.5 years, I have been able to see up close what grit means to Jaime. And that is pushing for not only achievement of the students, but the delivery of a really rigorous academic environment for our students with a really great climate. And he hasn't just hammered on the administration or teachers, but he's encouraged parents to also get involved with their students, to create a partnership for educating our students. And it's been relentless. And while I haven't necessarily agreed with every point that he's made, in his advocacy for students, I cannot do anything but applaud the attention and the dedication that he has given to the 205 students. Thank you very much.
Ms. McCullough.
So Jaime and I served on Ed Committee, too, for a couple of years. We've had a lot of history. Obviously, everybody's extolled your virtues about your time on the board, but I'm going to hit it from a little different direction. The board like to recognize your service, and I said to the board members, one of the things, since you're getting a new house, we probably should get a gift certificate to a big box store. And then I thought about how much time spouses give up and families to help support you when you're in this position. So instead, we want you to go to dinner and take your wife and treat her for all the time she hasn't had you. And there's some in there for babysitting, so leave the kids at home.
Very good. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very good. In case you didn't figure it out, this is Jaime's last board meeting, and he will be relocating, and we will miss him. And I can just add on that he has been tenacious and relentless in pursuit of excellence, and we appreciate that. And the district and the board are better off because of the time that you served on this board. So thank you so much. So I think we should stand, huh? Oh, you want to? Oh wait, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I jumped the gun last meeting, so.
Okay.
But I just want to, reiterate everything that I said last time, and we are going to miss you, Jaime, and we're sad that you're leaving.
Mr. Connor, do you have one more comment?
Actually, not. I have a second topic, so if we
Alrighty,
want to
okay,
recognize first.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I had a whole, may I speak
You
now,
may.
Mr. President?
Okay.
Actually, I just got a few thoughts here, but, I really want to thank everyone for putting up with me over the last few years. I think one of the things that we can agree on is that we really all have the same goal in mind, and we're all driving towards the same goal. So I think, it's been a pleasure working with everyone, so many smart, so many great leaders in this administration as well as the board. One of the things is that, we hear a lot of complaints. We've had a lot of very interesting speakers who blast out a lot of accusations towards the board. And I can honestly say that meeting every single one of you, have full confidence that a lot of the stuff that's being said is simply absolutely not true, and I'd be willing to share my experiences with anyone in the community who thinks otherwise. This is a great board, a great administration. Everyone really cares for our children. We may disagree specifically on timeframes, specifically from my standpoint, but everyone really cares. I've turned in my items. I do want to take this opportunity to kind of reread some of the things that I've said many times and please forgive me for that, but this is my last chance.
That's all right.
You know,
Should I put the 2-minute timer on? No. Okay.
I don't think I can do it in 2 minutes. But, you know, thanks to administration, you know, there's been some tough discussions, but I think we all realize that it's the end goal in mind is our children. And if we can all agree to that, then there's no hard feelings, right? We all here for one purpose, and that's the serving our children and the best for everyone. So thank you for putting up with me. You know, one thing that I've learned, not just as a board member, as a parent, as someone who's been involved in the community, someone who's spoken to our, you know, our teachers, even as a board member, I struggled with my own kids' education, right? I've had a son who was, for a couple of years, very lagging and underperforming, below grade level, to say the least. Very much, to the point that we were very concerned. We had worked with him for years, and we were getting really stressed out and not getting anywhere. So I want to thank teachers out there who are consistent, who are rigorous, who don't take no for an answer, who are consistently expecting more with high expectations. So I want to thank teachers like Ms. Joel Jagonsinski. In just a period of 1 year working Ms. Jagonsinski, I knew that, you know, when my son came home crying one day and saying I didn't go to recess because my teacher said my work wasn't done correctly, I knew there was going to be a change. And it's teachers like her who go the extra step, who simply, you know, have high expectations, and they demand it, and consistently. So we talk about rigor, consistency with high expectations. It's teachers like her who make a positive influence on everyone. And how, I guess, for the board and administration, how do we systemize that? How do we make sure that that's consistent across every classroom so that it's not just if you lock out 1 year or another, that we make that consistent? That's the real challenge. So my message is there is no one tool. My opinion, there's no one tool, there's no one solution, there's no consulting service, there's no one app that is going to solve our issues. We've got to build rigor, consistency, and high expectations in every single classroom. Because at the end of the day, like I've said before, right, our children are probably going to be okay, our children here. But what about those that don't always have the parent advocate? What about those that don't have the support at home? And that's where at least ensuring that we have systems in place for consistency, rigor, and high expectations, at least from that standpoint, we say, you know, we've got you covered if you're in our school district. And then the community has to step up for the other issues. So thank you for everyone. Lastly, you know, we read a lot of the board members here, and I'm going to return this book, Closing the Achievement Gap, No Excuses. And I'm going to return it not because I don't want to read it again, but because I was told there's limited copies, and I'd rather have the new board member read it again. And I just would add, it's Closing the Achievement Gap, No Excuses, with a sense of urgency. And I know I've said this before, but it's really, you know, from my standpoint is, as a parent, the kids need it today, they need it tomorrow, they need it next week. Every time we talk about plans for changes, and we talk about something implementing next year or next semester, studying in next semester, we've got to really consider, is that really the right thing to do? If we know there are certain things that are tried and true, and we cannot delay, we have to drive with a sense of urgency. So that's my personal message. Thank you for everyone. I think the community is in good hands with a great board and a great administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well said. Mr. Connor, you had another item?
I do. So this is another personal item. I think virtually everybody knows we're closing 2 schools and opening a new one. We're opening Constance Lane, which is a wonderful thing. But we are closing John Nelson School and Kishwaukee School. And on a personal note, I have ties to both. My dad actually went to Kishwaukee School. My mom went to John Nelson. My sister went to John Nelson, and I went to John Nelson. So a lot of tie-ins to those schools. I believe Nelson is 111 years old, I think, close to that, something like that. And I believe Kishwaukee is something like 108. So these are by far the oldest schools, and the buildings show it. But kudos to the staff, the principals, the parents, and the kids. They've worked really tirelessly in spite of the conditions. And we had a tour this last Saturday on the 25th. It was 2 hours long. And I want to give a lot of credit, first of all, to the principal, Trivita Redmond, who was there the entire time, greeted people. And second, to Michael Phillips, who's the executive facilities director. He was there the entire 2 hours. And there was well over 100 people, and I heard up to 150. And there were treats, and the TV stations were there. So I think it was a fitting turnout, and really ending to two schools that have been a part of Rockford for a long time. So too bad we can't drink beer here, because I'd clink glasses to both schools. But, you know, imaginary clink, and really to the tradition of all those that went to both schools, you know, salute.
Thank you. Any other board member comments? If not, we'll move on then to the consent portion of our agenda, including the following consent items: the meeting minutes of May 14th, 2019, payroll, accounts payable, purchase orders fiscal year 19, purchase orders fiscal year 20, contracts under 10,000, construction bid request log, and travel, the bid recommendations for the chiller replacement at Barber School, the recurring contracts, amendment to the consulting agreement for K-12 Insight, the Rockford Park District Summer School at Kennedy, the No Red Inc. on behalf of Kennedy Middle School, the independent hearing interpreter contract extension, the excess workers' compensation insurance with State National Insurance Company, the plan administrator renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield, the other consent items, including the monthly cash and investment report through April, the financial results of April 2019, the fiscal year third quarter treasurer's report, the facility rental waiver fee for the Rockford Police Department, a new school construction change order log, the RPS managed work change order, the MOU for Active God Days, the Freedom of Information log. Is there a motion and a second to approve these consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Siegel. Are there any consent items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Mr. Siegel?
9D.
B as in boy? Oh, D, okay. All right, Mrs. McCulloch?
11B, C, 12D, and G.
Okay. The coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the consent items not pulled.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, and I'll take a motion for the approval of item 9D, the purchase orders for fiscal year 19.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 9D.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Abstain.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
The motion passes to 6 yeses, 1 abstain.
Now I'll take, unless you want to do these two, you want to do them separately, that's what I figure, okay. Take a motion and a second to approve item 11B, which is the Rockford Park District Summer School at Kennedy.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
By Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion? Mrs. McCulloch.
So this is, I understand, an addendum to what we already have with the Park District, so we don't have to do a separate reading. It's considered an extension of a contract. I did ask that question. We are doing a separate summer school at Kennedy Middle School, and I just thought you could speak to that and the funding for it and, how that came about, since we basically have one summer school for middle school, and now we have this whole separate one just for Kennedy.
Sure. So the administration at Kennedy, in an effort to get better attendance, thought that if they hosted it at Kennedy with as many Kennedy teachers as possible, they could get more students to attend. So that was the purpose behind them having their own site. The funding is from the federal SIG grant, which they're in year 5 of that funding source.
So if it's successful, there's no funding for it next year, for a separate,
Not from the SIG grant, correct. So
and how will they demonstrate that it's a success?
well, they'll look at attendance. That's the first thing they're trying to do is improve attendance. So they'll compare attendance this year to previous years. They'll have different academic components that students are engaged in to determine if it was a success or not, just like the other summer school sites.
And so do you have a percentage of attendance for the students for last summer school, just for Kennedy?
I can get that. I don't have it tonight.
I don't have a problem with it. I just have we're starting something that the funding's not there for the following year, and we are also starting something separate in a separate school, and I don't know that there's funding to do it in all the schools, and we need to be where we need to be, so I get that. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of one way that we're trying to impact the students at that school.
Yep, those are good points.
Thank you. Any other comments? Now I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of item 11B, summer school at Kennedy.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Abstain.
The motion passes to 6 yeses, 1 abstain.
Thank you. I'll now take a motion to second to approve item 11C, which is the no red ink for Kennedy Middle School.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Questions or discussion? Mrs. McCulloch.
So this is a program to help students with writing and grammar, correct? And when I asked why it was under recurring contracts, I was told it's because it's already on the Title I menu and it's being used by other schools. But it's free on that menu, and we're actually purchasing this. So I would reiterate that it is not a recurring contract because we don't already have one with them. It's free and we're just using it for free. Would that not be correct? Or was I misinformed?
Yeah, you're misinformed on that. So there is an initial free program, and that's a good entry point for these companies. They get teachers to experiment and try the product first, and then if they seek success, there's a premium model, which comes with a fee. And so we do have other schools that are using the premium model as well.
And so the question I sent you was if we are already using it in the district under the free model, that we should be able to see achievement. I mean, how is it impacting achievement in those areas for those students to kind of justify moving up to the premium model? And I didn't feel like I got a real good answer, so maybe we could try again.
So I would say we could try again, but I would also add that the school, Kennedy, is selecting the product based on their experience with the free product, and so they do have data and success with the free product. So they're not looking at the other schools. Those schools just bought it this year, the premium edition. So their decision is made on their experience using the product. And I want to go back to what Mr. Escobedo just mentioned about how there is no one program, and it's fidelity of implementation and the work that happens at the school. So I think even if we had data that said it didn't work at one middle school, I would still consider supporting it for another middle school based on their own initiatives, what they're driving to do with their PLCs and the work that's happening in their particular buildings. I do think the programs are very important, but the implementation and the fidelity with each individual and the teachers using the data. If you look at the executive summary, it talks about how the PLCs will be data-driven, and that could vary from building to building. But so
it's in more than one middle school right now, you're telling me, and so there should be a trend. I'm not, not just looking at one school. And I understand that educators can choose the programs that they think will best move students in different areas. But I do know that this board has repeatedly said, we'd like to see some outcomes. You know, how did it make a difference? And so if we're going to buy a program for another building, that was it successful in, you know, in any of the buildings? And that was where we disagreed on your responses. I got nothing back from how it's working in other buildings, only the fact that basically it's on the Title I menu, and as you said, each school is different and implementation is. But here again, if it wasn't working in other schools, why not? Was that implementation? Was it really the program? What was it? And so as we bring programs forward that were free, because this isn't the first one, I don't think there was another one recently, you know, to be able to see that we were getting, that what the benefit of was free. Oh, the other one was Snapchat, so it's a way different platform. That wasn't, you know, an educational program. But to be able to share with the board how it was successful or not successful because ABC, and instead of just saying, well, it's in other schools, and so we're going to ramp it up here. That was where I was coming from.
The recommendation is based on this school's usage of the free product.
I think I can address the larger issue here as well, is as we continue with the Plan, Do, Study, Act process, this is a product that still is part of the Study Act. We have a plan, and we aren't multi-years into usage in other buildings. And what the board can expect from us moving forward with school-based menu items, which this is one, is that we are going to group them together around larger themes. Like this would be an example of something for writing improvement and for some literacy development. And what you will see is an aggregation of all of the schools that are using those, and we will annually be looking at products like No Red Ink as an option that schools can choose from in a menu of options to improve writing. And what we're really moving towards is a more decentralized and school-based model, ultimately where schools are going to be accountable as we give them additional autonomy to make decisions like this is in our school scorecards. The state provides one, and we will be walking the board over the next few months through what through district-developed scorecards as well. And ultimately, what is ordered off the menu ultimately is going to have to contribute to better results in multiple areas. And we are going to group those together around larger topics, annually let the board see what is on that menu. And that menu is going to include positions, which often go very unscrutinized. In addition to positions, we'll be looking at partnerships, and we will also be looking at equipment investments. And so that is what Dr. Vosberg and the schools team will be doing. This is an example of a school right now that is making an investment. This investment is going before the board because they happen to trip over the $10,000 mark. What we think should happen moving forward is instead of having the $10,000 mark being determined whether or not the board scrutinizes the investment, is to aggregate all of these purchases together as one big literacy options or writing options and let the board weigh on that. And I think for us to track down every single possible idea of how schools could do that one at a time is a less efficient use of the board's time than aggregating them together. So this is still an example of something that is a standalone that tripped the $10,000 mark. But moving forward, you can expect that these will be aggregated together.
Is it 10,000 per school or 10,000 per contract, right?
$10,000 per contract.
So it's tripping it because we're already up there because we're purchasing
Correct,
it for
because
other
someone
schools.
else is using it, yes.
So two questions, and I absolutely agree, big picture, put it all together,
Yes.
all that information, but
Not only will
we're
we
not
put-
there yet.
Right,
So
not only will we put it together by contractor, in this case by a partner, No Red Ink, but we are also looking at grouping them more collectively around a purpose or a functionality in the menu. Function one being, does it fit, is this a partnership that is approved, and what specific type of partnership is it? In this case, it's a literacy intervention. And I would expect the board, rather than scrutinizing No Red Ink, there would be 4 or 5 different literacy solutions that are all approved in one fell swoop, that all are deemed to be approved by our Ed Services team and showing some potential value if used properly. But ultimately, the accountability is not going to be one literacy program at a time. It's going to be, is the school moving the needle and seeing the kind of growth in English language arts and writing that they want to see? That will be the ultimate test of this. But it's so difficult to isolate one variable in that.
Well, and that's why it's good to have this conversation to understand what, what your expectations are. But is this so will eventually these schools, when they choose items off your menu, will they be put into their site-based budget? Will they choose them and they'll have a certain amount of money to spend on programs?
Yes, this is a site-based budget. Yes, this is a site-based budget decision.
So it's not a central piece.
The only thing that is centralized will be what is vetted and on the menu, and the board will vet what the menu is essentially, and then schools will have choice and ultimately be accountable for their results. That's the direction we're headed.
If everybody here understood that, I didn't, so thank you for that. And then this is just an annual, so annually they can determine whether or not it was successful and then change what they choose to invest in next year, and they're just going to look at how it works. Is
This
that correct?
contract is for the summer school and for next school year.
Yeah, and is that the same with most of our programs?
So
Because often we get like a 3-year contract and.
Right. It depends on the vendor and the product. The other two schools that are using it purchased the premium edition in December and January. That was East and Risa.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate the conversation.
Rollins?
Sorry, Mr. Rollins.
That's okay. My comments are actually going to tie into some of Mrs. McCulloch's and actually some of Mr. Escobedo's. So I know a middle school ELA teacher who uses No Red Ink and I think likes it. And I don't know if they've got the free version or the premium version. But at the beginning of this year, they had a transfer student from a different middle school. And the student, when they found out that they were using No Red Ink, really turned their nose up and said, "Oh, I hate that." And the conversation was why. The answer really was that at their old school, they were sitting in front of a computer all day, every day, doing nothing but No Red Ink. That's not what this is about. Correct. That's not what this program is about. So back to Mr. Escobedo's point, we can select the right tools and we can make those tools available. But if we don't ensure that the people are using the tools the way that the tools are supposed to be used, that's not going to, that's not going to progress us. And when we provide more and more tools where it's easy to just plunk kids in front of a computer, I think that's going to be a bigger and bigger issue. That's not a program issue. It's not a tool issue. That's a people issue. Right. And that's ultimately the issue that we need to solve.
Correct. I think what Dr. Jarrett was reiterating earlier is when there's metric on a scorecard that we're measuring growth at the school level, that there's the drive for fidelity of implementation is more serious because there's a measurable outcome at the end that everyone's working towards.
Okay. Any other comments? If not, I'll have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 11C.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
I'll now take a motion and a second for the approval of item 12D, the facility rental fee waiver for the Rockford Police Department.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
By Mr. Siegel. Comments or questions? Mrs. McCulloch.
Mostly I want to highlight the cooperative nature of this agreement. We have a facilities fee that we charge organizations who come in and use our facilities because it costs us money. It costs us money in many ways, staff as well as just building usage. And periodically we get requests to have those fees waived. And so this one is coming to the board because of the amount, but also I think it's important to, if there's somebody who wants to speak to this partnership, this is the third year it appears, and it is with the police department and it's with a summer program that they offer, and it's at East High School. And just a real quick summary for anybody who might be listening, because I think these are the kind of partnerships that can make a difference.
Mr. Phillips.
So just to reiterate what you were saying, this is the third year of this partnership with the Rockford Police Department. It's really serving 100 at-risk youth that live within the Rockford Public School District. There's 2 sessions The early sessions on Mondays and Wednesdays, youths 9 through 12 are able to attend, and Tuesdays and Thursdays, youths from ages 13 to 17. This is funded by the Rockford Police Department and is a free program to the students that are attending.
And my only comment about it is we really try to put our money into our students now, and this is open to any child in the city.
Correct.
So it is not just focused on the RPS 205 students, but because the police department, works for the entire city. Mr. Dixon, I'm sorry if I jumped on you.
No, it's fine. I just really wanted to highlight, like you said, because we do a lot of different things in the community that we don't highlight. Far as activities with our youth and with the partnerships. And so this was a great, when I looked at it, I really commend the partnership that we have. And I wish we would do more of this and then highlight it. More, it was on East, but we can do West and South too. But we're going to do better.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments? The coordinator then called the roll on the approval of item 12D, the facility rental fee waiver.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo?
Yes.
Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
I now need a motion and a second for item 12G, which is the Memorandum of Understanding for Act of God Days.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor,
Second.
second by Mr. Siegel. Comments or questions? Mrs. McCulloch.
Well, we had a lot of people standing up in front of us saying, we're professionals, we're teachers, just because there were more days off than are allotted in our contract. You know that we work more time than is actually in the contract, and so you shouldn't expect anything, additional days for us. And so this year, we didn't have a resolution at the time, and I want to make sure everybody knows publicly that this resolution does state that these teachers don't have to make up the 2 additional days. There's nothing being requested of them. And it does outline what happens going forward. And so if we were to have another horrific year that kills all my Japanese maples, that there will be expectations to make up that time using personal time in the form of 3 hours. So for each day, there would be 3 hours that they make up doing, what do we call it, work duties or professional staff members, and that in addition to that, to engage in 2 hours of scheduled professional development that has not been previously set, and that those 3 hours can be done in half-hour increments. And I sent this note to the superintendent, and I fully believe that a half hour, you're just getting going, and I really would like to have seen an hour put in there, at least a minimum of an hour's time, because God bless you. So I'm disappointed in that part of this. I am glad that we have an outline and we have a plan going forward, and hope that we don't ever have to use it. But please, everybody, be aware that there is resolution, and there are no makeup, and which is really good because we're only got a week left. So I don't know how other board members feel about that, and if we were to ask to change that to an hour, does it then have to go back to the REA and then come back to us again, or can we put an amendment in there to do that, and then you go back to the REA? How does that work?
If we were to make an amendment, it would have to go back to the REA Executive Committee for their consideration, and they'd have to re-vote on those changes, and then it would have to come back forward. I would not recommend that course of action.
And can you tell us some of the meaning behind, or some of their thought behind why such a limited period of time?
It was Mrs. Holdley, Mr. Zedeker, Dr. Vosberg, and Mrs. Kirschbaum. Am I correct? Am I capturing everybody? So we had 4 different people involved.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Now to have the coordinator call the roll on the approval of item 12G.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
Mr. Escobedo? Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
No.
Mr. Siegel?
Yeah.
The motion passes with 6 yeses, 1 no.
Okay, thank you. We are now on to the closed session consent agenda items, including the following: the appointment of Courtney Gray as a 10-month middle school dean at Kennedy Middle School, the appointment of Ronald R. J. Kolgowski as a 10-month middle school dean at Kennedy Middle School, the appointment of Christina Miller as 11-month elementary principal at Carlson Elementary, the appointment of Stephen Heidel as a 12-month assistant principal at East High School, the appointment of David Graffey as a 10-month assistant principal at Auburn High School, and the HR organizational report and addendum. And the closed session consent items, including the following: student discipline cases unless otherwise modified below. The board adopts and accepts the hearing officer's findings and recommendations in the following cases in which students expelled or suspended are prohibited from being on school grounds and school-sponsored activities without the prior written permission of the principal. Student 4278 is expelled. The expulsion is held in abeyance, contingent upon an EIA agreement for the remainder of this school year and through the entire 1920 school year. Students 4279, 4280, 4281, and 4282 are expelled for the remainder of this school year through the entire 2019-20 school year. The student 4283, the expulsion is held in abeyance contingent upon an EIA agreement for the remainder of this school year, followed by an expulsion for the 1920 school year. And the following students are receiving EIAs: students 1048, 1049, 1050, 3853, 3900, 3901, 3902, 3903, 3904, 3905, 3906, 3907, 3908, 3909, and 3910. Is there a motion and a second to approve the closed session consent items?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Connor.
Second.
Second by Mr. Rollins. Are there any items that board members wish to have pulled for separate consideration? Seeing none, I'll have the coordinator then call the roll on the approval of the closed session consent items.
Mr. Escobedo? Mr. Dixon?
Yes.
Mr. Rollins?
Yes.
Mr. Scrivano?
Yes.
Mrs. McCulloch?
Yes.
Mr. Siegel?
Yes.
Mr. Connor?
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Jarrett.
Before I turn it over, I again want to echo the board's words. Mr. Escobedo, your work on this board has been greatly appreciated. Your leadership has really resonated throughout the district, and we're so appreciative that you have always put students first, and your deep, deep commitment to making sure we are focused on a sense of urgency, moving the needle, will resonate in these throughout our district, throughout our 41 school buildings, and certainly throughout this district office long after you have moved on to other endeavors. And so thank you for leaving a really great legacy. You've certainly left the school district in a better place than you found it, and have contributed to being an absolutely outstanding board to work with. And you are a key element to that. And I know I speak on behalf of our entire leadership team that we are greatly appreciative for your service and your leadership. Thank you. And now I'd like to turn it over for our reports.
Summer maintenance on our school buildings.
Good evening. I'm Kathy Ellis, custodial manager for the district. Thank you for this opportunity to share the summer cleaning schedule. We are in summer 3 in partnership with Aramark. Aramark Corporate has recently implemented new management, and that management has been instrumental in creating this schedule. We support this new team that has been implemented, and we are collaborating, and we believe that they will support the frontline custodians and the zone managers, and believe that in turn they will be providing better service. We track 2 cleanliness survey goals on a monthly basis. Goal number 1 is to have 90% participation in our monthly survey. April results show that we had 92% participation. That equates to 100% of our building principals and 84% of our building champions. Our second goal is to have 80% of our buildings score a 4.0 or higher on a 5-point scale. On our April survey, our results were 64%, which equates to 29 buildings out of 45. We have 8 buildings that are scoring, that are in close range to that 4.0. They are scoring between 3.6 and 3.9. Therefore, our greatest area of opportunity is to really attack the cleaning this summer on those 8 remaining buildings that are scoring, per their April survey, 2.5 to 3.59. We have implemented 3 goals for summer cleaning this year. Our first goal is for 82% of the buildings to rate the Aramark Cleanliness Post-Cleaning Survey at exceeds cleanliness expectation. Our goal number 2 is to have 18% score the post-summer cleaning survey at meets cleanliness expectation. We want that 48% to go down to 18%. That 18% represents our 8 lowest scoring buildings, those buildings that scored on the last survey 2.5 to 3.5 now. Our third goal for the summer cleaning survey is to have 0 building score does not meet cleanliness expectations. These are stiff goals. They are up there, but we believe that Aramark can perform, and frankly, we believe that this is a service we're paying for, and our students, our faculty, our staff are worth it. So the question is, how are we going to get Aramark to perform this in 60 days with 192 custodians who are basically ready to take a summer vacation as well? So last year we had 20 major projects that impacted summer cleaning. This year we have 15 projects that impact summer cleaning. However, none of those projects have the requirements for the custodians to break down mountains of cardboard and to install furniture. For our library renovation projects, that furniture will be installed by the contractor, leaving the custodians free to clean. That's the difference. Summer expectations have not changed since last year. You may reference this list of tasks in your handout. In addition to those tasks that will be completed in every room, Aramark will be deep cleaning 10 swimming pools. They will be changing out light bulbs and filters in the rooms. They will be finishing the terrazzo at Auburn and at Guilford, and starting and refinishing the terrazzo at Johnson Elementary. In addition to that, they will be hiring a contractor to screen and refinish the gym floors at 12 locations. Zone managers are finalizing the detailed cleaning schedules, which will be shared with the building principals. That information will help guide staff who need access in the building. It's actually detailed. It says where Aramark's going to be at any given time during that scheduled cleaning. For the summer cleaning schedule, for the first week of June, the majority of custodians will remain in their building to support faculty and staff and to begin cleaning out the lockers in the hallways. Pertinent staff will be moved to Haskell, Eisenhower, and McIntosh to support the furniture moves for those renovation projects. Starting June 10th, Teams of 10 to 12 custodians will work at 8 buildings, that's 2 buildings per zone, completing the summer top-down cleaning in 8 days. Each classroom will have a checklist, which I believe you also have in your handouts. That checklist will be signed by the custodians performing the work as well as the zone managers. A building is deemed completed. Once a building is deemed completed, the Aramark manager and myself will perform an inspection. For those buildings that are our 8 lowest scoring buildings, we are going to request this year that the building principal and join us on that final inspection. Starting July, Aramark schedules will be shifted to the summer school sites. By August 5th, most custodians will be back in the building. However, we still will need to support efforts at McIntosh, West, and RISA. Final detail cleaning will also be well underway for locations for Teachers Institute. August 5th through 11th, Aramark will also be disinfecting the locker rooms at the high schools to take advantage of the athletic down period. On August 28th, the first day of Teachers Institute, the summer cleaning survey will be launched at 6 a.m. Building principals and building champions will be asked to assess how thoroughly the building was cleaned as of the first day of school. Thank you for your attention. Do you have any questions?
Questions for Catherine? Mr. Siegel, or comments?
We would normally say this for like a committee of the whole sort of conversation, but having sat through a lot of different discussions on the former operations committee, I am really encouraged to see this report. I could not have imagined when we voted to bring Aramark on that there would have been this much improvement over our previous vendor. And I don't think that really would have been possible if we hadn't had a team so committed to making sure that these schools were really getting clean. There has been tremendous progress. Yes, there's still work to do, but when the district had struggled for years with subpar custodial service, this is really very encouraging to see, and I think is going to be a nice boost to everybody who wants to walk into a building and see that it's clean. So thank you very much for your work.
Thank you. It's a team effort, definitely.
Mr. Rollins?
I'll echo Mr. Siegel's comments. I just had a couple of sort of practical administrative questions. So the final cleaning deadline is prior to the Teachers Institute, but teachers often like to get into their classrooms a week or two ahead of time to get them set up. Can we try to focus on getting at least the classrooms done in time for teachers to get in ahead of Teachers Institute and get their classrooms set up? And then the related question, and this just came up last year, so with the new PD that we've got for the Teachers Institute, a lot of those are in the classrooms, and there were some complaints that people came in and moved things around after the teachers had been in there setting it up. So are we going to, if we do that again this year, will we make sure that somebody like does a diagram of how the classroom is set up ahead of time and then make sure that they put it back to the way it was? How are we going to handle that?
Okay, so answering the first part of your question first, the detailed summer plans that we're going to send to the building principals, that designates what area will be available at any given time as far as the cleaning schedule. So that will tell faculty, when is your classroom going to be done? When is that hallway leading to the classroom going to be waxed? That way we don't have that conflict, and we know approximately when they want access to those rooms. If we look at this schedule, that's going to show us, you know, tentatively, it's going to be a give and take. Of course, it's fluid, but it's going to also, this has been shared with the building principals, and it's going to also help that vehicle of communication on when can you access your classrooms. As far as your other concern on institute days, and we had setups that were set up in the classrooms and then taken down, we've combated that information has been brought to our attention, and there are communications now and expectations on what everybody's doing.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Dixon, or Mr. Connor?
Mr.
No, it really was the
Okay.
same thing.
So, number one, thanks to Mrs. Ellis, really seen a great improvement in the way that program has been structured, the feedback. Special kudos are, I think this is probably, from my point of view, one of the best examples of getting feedback, responding, and actually structuring things around it. So I have to say kudos on this particular topic, because I think the administration and Mrs. Ellis have really listened carefully. So very pleased with that. One item I will say is that I noted that Aramark has made changes again, and I've heard that the changes are for the better. However, I think this is one where we're going to have to really see. This has been a slow start, and I'm sure for those people that are in the buildings, this is no news that this has been a slow start. So one of the suggestions is that maybe at a committee of the whole, when it's convenient or something, that the new Aramark folks be there and at least in some brief manner address some of this. I think, for example, that the goals for the exceed and the meets and does not meet is pretty aggressive. I'll be way interested to see what the results are, but I'm glad we're making stretch goals that people are going to go after. So what I would say is kudos really to the administration for having structured this well and listened well, but we really do need to see the follow-up for Aramark tangibly. And I think in particular, I will say we fought pretty hard to make sure that the building champions were a part of this. A little disappointed to see that they're still not at that 80% mark for the feedback, or 90%. So I'd really like to see that improve. And I think this would be something where I would challenge the teachers to say, we need you to come here and really be honest, and maybe, again, it's a committee of the whole, to say, what is it we can do that's better? Because I think that has been part of what's made this process a lot better, is much more active teacher participation, but we still need more.
Thank you. Great report, thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. McCulloch, I
You
didn't
need
look
to
that
sit
way.
here, then you can see
Okay.
everybody better.
Okay. I know.
I'm telling you,
I
this
should
is
be on the end. so I
on
can
an end.
look
This
one
is so much
direction.
different because you really can.
I was
It's a
checking
great
the date
spot.
on our next committee of the whole, which is June 4th. if
I
anybody
really
wants
like
to-
it. Just clarification, because I didn't understand the answer to Mr. Rollins' question about if a teacher wants to be in their classroom, basically, and you said, well, we've told the principals. So do the principals find out which classrooms teachers want to be in so that they prioritize in order? Or you're telling the principals when they're coming so they can disseminate that, so the teachers have to work around that schedule? I wasn't sure how they were listening to who needed to be in their classroom. Could you explain what you said?
Basically, I'm providing the guidelines. I'm saying, here's the building hours, here is when we're going to be in your buildings. You let us know. And of course, they have to work with security and let the building principal know if they need access to those classrooms. And if they do throughout the summer, they will know where we are. Therefore, that way we're not conflicting.
So they're working around you. That was the answer to the question. You're setting the guidelines, they're working around you. It's not the
Absolutely.
principals to ask the teachers, if they have any agenda or
No, but
timing issues. Okay.
I do know that a lot of them do communicate that schedule to their staff, and they expect their staff to be in and access their classrooms. So we're letting them know where we're going to be so they can plan.
All right. That makes more sense. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Phillips?
Just to add to that, I believe the question Mr. Rollins had posed is a lot of times teachers would like to be in their classrooms 2 weeks prior to the start of school, and we will work towards achieving that, allowing teachers into those classrooms. A number of locations will be able to achieve that, and some of the locations where we have construction, those may be the challenges, but we will do everything that we can to provide that access.
Okay.
And then just one other follow-up, I'm sorry, is we do plan to return to a committee of the whole, more than likely in October, to have time in September to look at those results and give an update to the board. And at that time, we would be happy to bring our new Airmark management to that meeting.
Thank you.
Excuse me, since you're up there, these projects that are on the list, like the library projects for Bloom, Carlson, Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Marshall, and Riverdale, these are all, and all the rest of them are part of the capital plan still being
That is correct.
moved
Yes.
through, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All righty, thank you. Mr. Youngblood is next on the purchasing report.
Good evening. My name is Dane Youngblood. I'm the Director of Purchasing, and I'm going to be providing you tonight with an overview of our purchasing process, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. The main objective of the purchasing department is to help schools and departments make timely, cost-effective purchases of goods and services while also ensuring that they comply with board policy and state and federal guidelines. We will touch on the purchasing process itself, some of the exemptions to that process, and some improvements that we are implementing going forward. So for the vast majority of the purchases we make here, we use a requisition process where requests are made at the department school level, and then both building and central office administrators and the purchasing team approve those requests and ultimately place the order once that's complete. This table shows the different documentation that is required at different dollar thresholds. As you can see, the higher the expense, the more documentation that's required to show that we are competitively sourcing those items and services. To go along with that documentation, the different dollar amounts, we also have different levels of administrators sign off on those expenses. As you can see, up to $2,500, that decision can be made by directors and principals. Above $2,500, executive directors sign off on the requisitions. At $5,000, cabinet members are required to sign off, and anything over $10,000 is also approved by the CFO and superintendent. This slide has a visual representation of that purchasing process. It kind of shows all the different parties that are required to help make that work. In the red there, the schools obtain quotes, determine the needs that they have, enter requisitions. In blue is purchasing, where it goes through workflow. We issue the PO, we expedite those orders and make sure they get here in a timely fashion. Distribution receives the items. AP pays processes the invoice, and once the board approves, the checks are sent to the vendors. This graph shows how many purchase orders we do by dollar amount. We do about 8,000 to 9,000 purchase orders a year. As you can see, the vast majority, 77% of those, are under $2,500. I think it's also important to know that often at the higher dollar amounts, those are also blanket purchase orders, which are really multiple smaller purchases paid in one place. So a lot of those expenses are a lot lower too. There are some exemptions to the purchasing process, particularly the documentation that's required at different dollar amounts. Some of those exemptions are, for example, professional services such as architect fees and consultants, items that are only available from one source such as published material or software licenses. And then another exemption that we use are purchasing consortiums, which I will go into in a little bit greater detail here. Purchasing consortiums are independent entities that are comprised of many members. We use public ones, so it's all other governments, school districts, municipalities. And basically, they combine their buying need into larger contracts that take advantage of national discounted pricing. So they have that higher volume, and the vendors put in lower bids at those volumes. It also helps because it's efficient for the district, because our team doesn't have to do as many bids because they're bid by other governments at that level. So one of the downsides of consortiums, it does not necessarily guarantee that it's the lowest price for those items. I think it is also important to point out that price is a substantial but one factor that goes into basically determining value. Value is more of a cost over time concept, and oftentimes there is more value, but it's not necessarily the lowest price. Our ability to utilize consortiums falls under the Intergovernmental Agreements Cooperation Act. Some examples for how we use consortium purchasing is for things like furniture and flooring and computer equipment, where it helps to standardize the purchase of those items. It helps keep maintenance costs and replacement costs down over time. It also allows us to buy the items we need without having to sort through competitive products that don't necessarily meet our needs but are submitted anyways. Another place that it's very useful to use are office and classroom supplies, because it gets difficult to replicate long lists of supplies for multiple vendors that can provide all of those items to get apples to apples quotes. Going forward, we intend to develop internal criteria for the use of purchasing consortiums. We are also going to ask people to provide second quotes, so while it may be exempt from the bidding process, we will still make sure that those additional quotes are provided to show that we are getting better pricing. And we will have the board approve them on an annual basis going forward. And you'll see that I believe it's 18C tonight that's coming up next.
Okay, comments or questions for Dean? Mr. Rollins?
So there's another category of consortiums that we can use, and those are the master contracts that have been approved by the Illinois State Board of Education. Have we ever figured out whether the ISB has actually approved any of those contracts?
We use state of Illinois contracts. ISB is one of many multiple agencies in the state of Illinois. The state has its own procurement arm that does the bidding for all of the agencies, whether it's IDOT, ISB. So we do use some of those contracts. We buy vehicles off of them. I know that we buy computer equipment off of some of them, for example.
Are we using the Intergovernmental Agreement Act to do that, though? Or what's the statutory authority for that?
The school code specifically exempts the other, unlike the purchasing consortium, which requires the additional board approval, the school code specifically exempts the use of contracts bid by the state of Illinois.
Okay.
Other comments or questions for Dwayne? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Great job. Okay, we'll move on to our action items for tonight. Action item 17 has been pulled by administration. Our other and new business is 18A is the Rockford Park District facility rental. I don't know who's presenting that one. Dr. Vosberg.
Okay. Contract before you is for rental facility with the Park District. The last 2 weekends in June, our community and our school district was selected by the NCAA to host these live recruiting events. And this is the first year of that occurring. So in the past, in the summer, if college coaches wanted to see prospective college athletes play basketball, they went to their AAU tournaments, which was not affiliated with the school and typically not affiliated with school personnel. And over time, they thought that probably wasn't the best interest of students, that you wanted to have high school coaches there that are more aligned to the missions and values of educational entities. So this is the first year that that's happening. We applied probably last fall to be a host site, and we were selected. We're the only site in the Midwest or in this immediate region that's a multi-state site. We're hosting schools from 8 different states and over 100 teams. Our plan is to host in our gyms and our field houses first, and that's what we've done. And then this is for the overflow games. So we are anticipating over 100 teams in the community for those 2 weekends. And you can see that it's a big win for our community as well. The Visitors and Convention Bureau has given us $7,500 to help with our costs because they value the impact of all the tourists that will be in the community.
Questions for Dr. Vosberg? So they must be using the UW Sports Factory building?
Correct. And you'll have a contract coming up in a week for Rock Valley College as well.
Okay. Seeing no questions, this will come before the board for a vote on June 11th.
I do have a question.
Okay,
So
Ms. McCullough.
why don't we have the whole package? Why don't you have the RBC contract and the Park District contract, and you can show the numbers and everything? I know because it's
Yes.
supposed to be cost neutral, but why couldn't you just bring it to us all at once?
Timing. So we had to make some adjustments to the Rock Valley contract, and we didn't hit the deadline to get it here tonight.
Because it has to go through theirs first.
Yeah, our legal looks at it, then their legal looks at it, yes.
Mr. Dixon.
So the benefit of being a board member is we get a chance to go.
There you go. Okay.
Yes, we can make that happen.
Okay.
That's
I say
exciting.
yes.
I'll send Mr. Parker a text right now.
I think that's exciting. I really do. Okay, so let's move on to 18B, which is the new playground for Lewis Lemon Elementary. Mrs. DeLange is going to present that.
Good evening. I'm Ann DeLange, Director of Operations. I'm here to present on a new playground for Lewis Lemon Elementary School. Lewis Lemon's playground was installed in 1993 and is one of the oldest in the district. Normal life expectancy for a playground is 15 years. Slides are cracked and broken, along with metal brackets, supports that are rusting and have sharp edges. We have collaborated with the Rockford Park District, Senators Dave Severson and Steve Stadelman, to receive a $50,000 grant from DCEO to apply to the purchase of this playground. This is the proposed design of the new playground. The total cost of the new playground is a little over $131,000, which includes the purchase of equipment, mulch, removal of existing playground, site work, and installation. Kids around the world will be installing with the assistance of volunteers. The grant will reimburse $50,000 once the playground is installed and all invoices are paid. Rockford School District's in cost will be a little over $81,000. Life cycles of this playground and other playgrounds will be included in the next facilities master plan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Do you have any questions?
Any comments or questions for Ann? Ms. McCullough.
Well, I actually sent this. I think Ms. Yar responded, but and I didn't ask this question when Haskell came about, but this was not in our original capital budget for our expenditure that I referred to a minute ago. So you said they were moving the money from Fund 20 to Fund 50 to do this. Fund 20 is what? Ms. Yar.
Yeah, I can help out with this. So Fund 20 was originally budgeted there, but it really belongs in Fund 60, so we're just moving that budget over to the right area.
Fund 20 is what?
It's operations and maintenance.
Okay.
And it really is a capital expenditure because it's a playground. So it really belongs in Fund 60, and Mr. Phillips had given me the information that I forwarded on to you. But he had told me in the email that it was really in the wrong fund, so I said we can correct that. It's not a problem.
Do you, off the top of your head, know how we funded? Because we also did a cooperative playground with that department with Haskell, correct? Didn't they put their 50 in there as well?
Actually, the Park District is funding the Terry Lee Wells Playground at Haskell, and they are also receiving $50,000 from the DCEO.
So we did not invest anything in that
Correct. We
playground?
did not invest anything
Okay,
in that.
great. My other question was, did y'all, for the design, having been participatory in a school in designing playground and the colors and all that, there was a lot of input from the school. And did we have that, or did somebody just design this and choose colors, or how did you interact with the school, the students, teachers, or whomever?
So we have had 3 options that, as we've replaced playgrounds across the district, that principals and students have had an opportunity to weigh in on. What we did is the students at Haskell, the Park District went to them with the 3 different options, and the students at Haskell chose option 3, and we wanted to have the playgrounds actually be the same, Lewis Lemon and Haskell.
So Lewis Lemon did not participate in this. They're doing what Haskell chose.
That's correct.
And the color's the same? Did they get to participate in any way?
They can choose which colors they want at Lewis Lemon.
Getting kind of late in the year. Is this for a summer installation? And don't you have to purchase it? And it's blue and green on here. I just know kids feel when they're part of the project. They'll be excited either way, but.
We'll definitely reach out.
Mr. Rollins.
The grant letter that's attached is kind of phrased as a joint project between the Park District and the schools to do Lewis Lemon, Terry Lee Wells, Walker School, and White Swan schools. And it says that the district will contribute $100,000. So the cost for Lewis Lemon is $81,000. Are we still on the hook for the other $19,000?
No, by using the U.S. Communities Consortium, the actual playground is $131,000, and we're getting a discounted price on the playground of $23,000.
Okay. So nobody's making the argument that we still have to contribute $19,000 to something.
That's
else.
correct.
All right, thanks.
That's correct.
Okay. Okay, this will be presented then at our June 11th board meeting. Mr. Youngblood is next with the purchasing consortia.
I don't really have anything else at this point, other than a presentation, but if there's more questions about that.
Yeah, basically what we're bringing forward is to, like what we said in the presentation, was to get the intergovernmental agreements approved, and this is an annual requirement that we are bringing forward tonight. So we will do this on an annual basis to approve this consortia.
Any questions? Ms. McCulloch.
Well, I appreciated the presentation because the question that I had about this one earlier and I was going to ask was, how are we making sure that we are getting our best bang for our buck in a consortium? And since you're asking for a second quote to go along, although I wonder how that happens when you have a bid process, how do you just choose somebody for a second quote for something like furniture? Because if you were to put it out for a bid, your quote might be different. So, and since you don't bid when you have a consortium, I understand that. Just how does that work a little bit? How do they get that other quote to show that we're really getting our best?
Schools and departments are responsible for getting quotes, and we evaluate them, make sure that they're apples to apples, and make sure that they are meeting the criteria set forth at those different thresholds.
We do expect our bids to increase because of this requirement, and so I have made this effective July 1st, and we have reached out to some departments to, in the workflow, I've noticed that perhaps there's a better price that we could get when it comes to me, because I am signing off on everything over $10,000. So this is when and during this presentation process, is really went into those details and decided that we would go ahead and change our requirements. And we have worked with facilities and operations as a main user of this, and so is IT. So we have reached out to them. So I couldn't really implement it in a week's notice or 2 weeks' notice to be fair on everything, to get it through the summer and get our summer work done. but I did require some to come through. I worked with Mrs. Hoadley on that, so we did require some, but we really couldn't delay all the work that needs to be done.
So what I just heard you say was that the bids will increase because we will send things out for bids that otherwise we would just automatically have gone to a consortium for? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, the departments have told me that they will, instead of getting 2 quotes, they will probably just go out for bid because it'll be just as cost effective or just as effective for them to do that with their time.
And then when they get that bid, we are tied to the bid, or can we compare that to what the consortium cost would be?
I would be concerned that would burn out bidders if we executed bids and they put the time and money into them and then we decided not to award it. Usually purchasing consortiums, the use is part of a bigger buying decision process. It's one of the options available. Bidding's an option. You know, sometimes we do have sole source and other exemptions. A lot of times it is most useful to help make sure that we get the products that best fit our needs and also get better pricing than is available for those same products from other vendors.
Thank you.
I mean, we could also go out for RFP. I mean, not everything has to go as for a bid to get the best pricing, so we can do an RFP as well.
Mr. Connor?
Just clarifying what Mrs. McCulloch said. If I understand correctly, part of this bid or quote is you have standard requirements. Is that not correct? I mean, you have to say exactly what you want, and that's how you get apples to apples, right? You say,
correct.
I want a desk that's this big, and it's got to be certain grade and what have you. So it always depends on having the right requirements, right? Okay, so that's how you get your comparisons and how you know that it's apples to apples, and that's, okay. Because really the difference between the bids and the quotes is really just time on the staff, right? That's the main difference?
For the most part, yes. I mean, and again, what we are required by statute to bid and what we aren't.
Okay.
And we did implement about a year ago where we were looking at the sole source because someone could just bring something forward as sole source. So myself, Dane brings it to myself, I sign off on it, Lori Hoadley signs off on it as well, that this meets the sole source.
And sole source in this case, again, just to make sure this is clear, is based on requirements, and it would be unique requirements that would typically be sole source, right?
Yes, procurable by one vendor, and then also professional services.
I mean, it's not like I have tables and anybody can do it tables and I'm going to one person. This is maybe a specialized table or what have you. That's the whole purpose
I
of
think
that.
a good example is a lot of the curriculum that we purchase that you guys approve at each board meeting, because those decisions are made on an academic basis primarily. And then because those publishers are the only people that make that material, we have to buy it from them once that's the decision that's made.
Yeah, the point I was making is it's unique. That's why it's sole source.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. This will be presented at our June 11th for a board vote. Our last new business item is the Paradad Consulting Agreement. Mr. Nasamito. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here. Jaime, thank you very much for everything. In the name of all of us in the bilingual department, we really appreciate all that you have done for us. With that, here's a great opportunity for us in the bilingual department to align our curriculum, and that's what I'm going to present about, is asking for support as we do the work. What we are looking at is looking at our general education curriculum and then to find our way to align our curriculum with the TBE standards. There is Common Core standard in Espanol now. It's all new. We have ESL reader standards that we have to work with for our ESL students and TBE students. And we have to align that with the curriculum that we have for district. Our curriculum is for all students. Doesn't matter where you're from. Our curriculum is for all. It's not just for our general education students. It's for bilingual students too. The problem is that our general curriculum right now is not aligned with the TBE language development. standards, and we need to align those. We need to align that with the WIDA standards, English New Language standards for ESL students, and the English Language Development standards. All of that needs to be aligned, and that requires a lot of work and expertise, and that's why we are asking for support. But in that consulting, they will come in and then try to help us understand where we are in terms of our general education curriculum, how to embed the Spanish language arts and English language development standards to the curriculum, and understand how the WIDA English language development standard works with the National Geographic resource that we just purchased for our ESL students. It is a lot of work, I understand that. It will take a long time, but we have to do it. We cannot have our students not having a aligned curriculum. This is a 3-year endeavor that we are looking at. We are looking to try to start this year. That's why I'm here right now. So for the 18-19 is at the district level. For the 19-20 will be a school level initiative. And then for the 20-21, we're going to go into the classrooms. So right now is really to get the bilingual department, the curriculum department deans to get together and define the language delivery of the program model, understand the relationship between English language development and the content of standards. Then next year, we're going to go into the schools and a widespread understanding of the language delivery model. What do we have available for us? Understand of the relationship between the new language component and the language development targets. And then the third year, the year of implementation, really applying everything that we have put together in the past 2 years in all the grades that we have in our district. How much it's going to cost? For year one, this year, $22,000. For year two, 19-20 is going to cost us $61,000. The first year is 8 full days. Second year is 22 full days, 8-hour days. And the last year is 36 days. They're going to come and go district-wide. All of these will be funded by our grant. We have a grant from the state of Illinois, and that will support this initiative. Benefits, one, we'll build capacity for teachers, for the bilingual department, for the CLTs, for administrators. Hopefully, my hope is that in 3 years down the road, we don't need to ask for anybody to come and help because we'll know how to do this. Second, they bring expertise. They are experts in the area of curriculum alignment for English language development, and they will come in and help us put this together and give us clarity on how to integrate literacy works with bilingual students. Fourth, they will provide us guidance, timeline for completion. This is a long process. It's not going to happen overnight. And lastly, it will help us align the curriculum. We have 5,112 students in our bilingual program in ESL, and we need an aligned curriculum, and we need it as soon as possible. And that's all I have. Questions?
Questions, Mr. McCullough?
What is WIDA? W-I-D-A.
WIDA is a consortia. They are the one that give us the access test every year. They work with the state of Illinois.
Do you know what it stands for?
I wish I have it on the top of my mind. It's an acronym for...
I know, but I like to know what, it's nice to know what the acronyms are.
Yeah.
It's thank you, Google. It's World-Class Instructional Design and Assessment.
Oh, gosh, yeah. That's
World-class instructional design.
And assessment.
And assessment.
They are the ones that give us the access for the state of Illinois, and 33 states give the same test, the access.
So they're the company that does it. I'm just a little bit of more information about the breakdown. So 18-19, they're going to be here. They're going to work with us for 8 days for the $22,400. But we don't have 8 days of school left. I'm guessing you must be doing it during the summer. But then how are you getting in the schools and looking at the classrooms and the like?
This is a district with the bilingual department, the administration, of the bilingual department, the curriculum.
Define the program and understand the relationship between the ELD and the content standards. So they're just coming in and talking to your department for 8 days.
And the curriculum deans.
And who?
The curriculum deans.
And the curriculum deans. And the curriculum deans are 12 months.
Correct.
So they'll be there, okay? And then in the 1920, is that, it says school level, so the reason that you increase it to 22 days is that they go into all the buildings?
That is correct.
And they work with whom in the buildings at that level?
The TBE buildings, there are 7 of them. 6 of them are Spanish speakers. 1 is Arabic, Rolling Green. They're going to work with those principals and teachers. That's why we need more time to work.
So when you go into the buildings the 3rd year and you go into each individual classroom, is that why there's 36 days?
There are a total of 231 ESL and bilingual teachers district-wide, and we are now in every building. So that's why we need more days.
So you'll be just expanding the scope of the classrooms. You'll just go into the 7 buildings in those classrooms that
And
second
then
year.
we have to look into the ESL component, not only the TBE component, but the TPI component.
Will there not be some generalized delivery model and PD about this?
In
or-
year 3, really, we're deepening and being more specific. So our goal this summer is to really build capacity and partnership between both the bilingual administrators and the curriculum deans to have some kind of cross-team learning so that we can better understand the relationship between curriculum and bilingual programming. It's kind of our overall framework to build capacity in the central office to be able to lead the work. The next layer down is to build capacity in principals as we're continuing to create the framework for curriculum design with the curriculum team. That next year is getting into the framework will be established, the curriculum will be established, and it will be about lesson planning and leading small groups of teachers and how to plan using the tool that now incorporates the English language development standards.
That's the 3rd year.
The 3rd year, correct. And so we'll be pushing into instructional coaches as well.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Escobedo. So quick question, how critical is this program to TBE and ESL academic achievement?
Very critical, because our job is to teach English. We have to teach English. And if we don't have a good foundation on native language and ESL to support, we can't do that. Curriculum is the roadmap, so we need to align with everything that we have and give those tools to our teachers in order for them to teach. So then we're going to see the impact. The more English you learn, the better you are. I mean, it's simple math. If you don't know English, then we test them in English when they don't know. It's very complicated. So it is extremely important that we do this work so we can continue to teach English to our students.
So, yeah, basically I think Ms. McCulloch is laughing because she knows my follow-up question.
Yeah, we all, okay, how you know,
And I mean, this is just, again, if there's it's one thing that if hopefully you guys remember about me is we've got to challenge this because if it's this critical, if I have a 2nd grade, if a parent has a 2nd grade, 3 years from now, that kid may be out of the program or may have moved to a different, out of the elementary. So we've got to start thinking in terms of semesters and shorter time frames. We can't be thinking about in terms of years. So I guess I would challenge this and say, if it's really this critical, can we implement it sooner? I'll leave that with that, and thank you for taking my comment.
The scope is so large. We are into integrated literacy as we move along. And we all, as a district, we are all learning how to do that. And on top of that, we have to bring into a bilingual program into that. So the work of the curriculum department is amazing. It's truly amazing. So now that component is going to join in and make a complete for all students. So I think we can't rush. We have to do it right as we do it. So it will take a little bit of time, but it has to be done correctly. We can't mess things up. We have to do it right.
And I would just add that there's nothing in our plan that doesn't say we can't go faster when we feel like we've mastered it and we're ready to move on. But I would echo Misael's sentiment here and just say what we've recognized is a need for support between the two departments. We've tried things to do them quickly and to turn them around. And what we have noticed is that we're lacking the strong foundation to give us that to give us that ability to be nimble and to be flexible and make change quick, because we're on a shaky foundation in terms of the aligned core curriculum in our bilingual classrooms, and that's something that I have realized over the last 18 months or so, as we've tried to move in one direction or another, and we keep getting caught. And so our effort here is to really provide that strong foundation so that once that's in place, then we can add to it and move more quickly and be more agile. But right now, we really can't do that because I can go in multiple classrooms across the district and see things being done in very different ways. And we lack that research base and solid understanding to be able to say what is so that we can move forward. I think that we could certainly expedite the timeline when we all feel that we're ready and with enough time with our schools to build their understanding right alongside us. But one of the most important things to me is that we're building our capacity so that we can carry on this work and truly own it as a district.
Thank you. I guess this very last comment, final comment is I would challenge you to go the other way around and say you give your team a shorter time frame, and then if you feel you're not ready, then you can extend the time frame. Thank you.
Mr. Dixon.
I was looking at, so when we say bilingual, most of the time we're thinking of Spanish language. Now, is there any other language that's in the we're talking about French, we're talking about any other language, and how many different languages are in there, and what are they teaching those, or what do you mean that, so what is all involved in them coming in?
So the bilingual programs are well, we have actually three, right? We have the dual language program, which is at Barber.
Right.
It's a two-way dual language. And then we have a developmental bilingual, which is Spanish in 6 elementary, and then one Arabic. So we don't teach all languages. Somebody asked today how many languages actually we have. We have 74 plus, God knows how many more, others. So we don't teach all languages. For the bilingual program is for the Spanish and the Arabic.
So we focus on those two.
For the ESL part of it, English second language, is all the other languages. So we have to teach English them all. And at the same time, the bilingual program, the TBE bilingual program is a little bit different from ESL. Or it's a lot different from ESL. ESL concentrates and teaches English to all the other languages. And then the Spanish students will learn Spanish and English. And the Arabic student will learn Arabic and English.
And this is what's going to help drive the force behind those each department you just said.
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay, Mr. Connor?
Sorry, are you done?
I'm sorry, I thought you were
Yeah,
done.
I don't think he's done. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm done. I was trying, yeah, I'm done.
Are you sure?
Okay, Mr. Connor.
Okay. A couple things. One is, even though the approach seems to make sense here, the one thing, and I apologize, I didn't have a chance because of work to come up with all the questions in advance, but I would wonder, the actual outcomes here look to be standards, because as I looked at the language, standards is at the end where it says understand WIDA, and then the 3-year support. You do have the model, which I assume is part of the how, and the standards are the what across the 3 years, but 3rd year says application of the delivery model. So it sounds like for actual outcomes that we're preparing really for a couple years, and it's not until the 3rd year that we're really implementing that model. Is the way it looks.
Not necessarily, because we don't want to hurry and do it whatever, right? So we want to do it right. So the 3 years that you see in front of you, it's not we're going to wait until then. we can, as we do the work, we can start implementing those in the schools that we have. Total implementation with principals, coaches, and all of that will happen third year because the whole work will be complete, right? So when the whole work is completed, we have the standard aligned with the curriculum aligned.
If I might push back just a little, if I looked, so I know language is different on the business side than in education, but if I look at the outcomes, so it says 3-year support, which I would translate as outcomes. What you're doing on the first delivery in 1819 is defining. The second delivery is understanding. Those to me sound like planning activities and not implementation. Then in 1920, it again says understanding, and then bullet 2 is again understanding. So I would interpret that as, again, planning activities to kind of Mr. Escobedo's point. Is it really, and maybe this isn't fair or it's not true, but that's, if you read the outcomes, that's what it says. And then finally, year 3 says classroom level application, which sounds like you've got a thing and you're implementing it. And then it says dissemination of the model, which I assume is the implementation. So, did I misunderstand what those outcomes are?
Yeah, you got. There's 3 levels there. One is the administrative level, us working here, number 1.
Right.
2, now we have school level.
Right.
And then 3, we have district-wide level, even going to the classroom. So if you look at that way, and it's a little bit different of what you're talking about.
So I guess maybe as a suggestion, and again, I'm not necessarily against this, but it seems to me, if I hear what you're presenting as opposed to what's in the slides, is you've got something that sounds like it should be tangible, virtually right away. And again, to Mr. Escobedo's point is, what actually are you going to do? You're going to have something with 10 parts to it, and you're going to hand it to classroom teachers, and they're going to apply it universally to everybody who's in the ESL or whatever that deliverable is. There's got to be something tangible.
So they'll be working with the curriculum leadership team as well once that gets rolling in the fall. And so part of their work is to develop sample units. These sample units are things that will go out into classrooms so that teachers and principals and instructional coaches can start to be exposed to the framework and the template and the model, be offering feedback, et cetera. That all happens next year. It's the 3rd year when we're really getting deep into PLC support with lesson planning. On a regular basis, that we're really deepening that implementation. And after 3 years, the support then is released because we've trained central office, school leaders, and classroom teachers across all 3. But the goal is to have sample units ready to go like mid next year that are being implemented in classrooms. And that's why we want to spend the time in schools getting principals up to speed and coaches up to speed as well.
I think, and maybe it's just me, but what you just said is different than what it states in the bullets here, and that's more helpful for you to say, by next year, you're going to have a tangible thing, and you're going to test it out, and that's going to be tested in November. I'm making up a date, but those kinds of things help me visualize what actually is being delivered out of it. So I understand that you have training, to the tune of $2,800 a day, which is consistent throughout the pricing, and out of that will come the following. Yeah, I think that would be, I'm just speaking for me, but I think that would be helpful too.
So I just to go back to the question over there, we're not going to wait like 3 years to, now it's 3 years. Right. Now we're going to, no, that is not it. As the process, we are already, this summer, we are going to go into it. Next school year, we start working and developing, and the schools will be involved.
Yeah. Next school year. Again, I'm not questioning methods. I'm not questioning anything. I think it's just having tangible outcomes, and when they are, is really what I would expect out of something like this, because it's not inexpensive. And to Mr. Escobedo's point, when are we going to have something that teachers could apply?
I understand.
Yeah.
My question is kind of related, but I would just say that it's not clear to me, is the measurable outcome training is completed by a certain date, or is the measurable outcome, or should the measurable outcome be some numerical improvement in student achievement or learning?
We have an action plan attached to the PDSA that will give you a timeline of when we want to see the work completed. And what will happen is really have us as a department and the curriculum department with enough expertise to move on. And we need that as, you know, my department, my administrative team and the curriculum department to understand what TBE, what bilingual education is all about.
I guess my question is really academic.
Oh, okay.
In turn, rate of return.
I think in this instance, we'll be looking really at the completion of the contract and the scope of work as it's outlined. So we want to have units aligned in all grade levels, K through 5, by the end of our contract, and that just right alongside parallel with our general education curriculum.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this will come back to the board on our June 11th board meeting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I just want to communicate two things to the board members. One is that the applications for the board vacancy for Subdistrict G will be due by June 7th. And we tentatively have the interview for candidates scheduled for June 26th at 6 p.m. And then I did send out an email to all the board members about administration has warned us that they have a lot of reports and presentations to give in June. And do we want to stay late or do we want to come in early or whatever? I gave you two options. One is to keep the schedule the way it was with a 5 o'clock closed and a 7 o'clock open. Another option was to start it earlier. And we've done this before, actually, where we started at 4 in open, then went into closed at 5, and then went back into open. So that was favorable to 4 out of the 6 board members. They would rather be done early than stay late. A third option was suggested by a board member that we start closed at 4 and hope that we have a quorum, and then start open at 6:30, which would maybe get us out a half an hour sooner or whatever. My only concern with that suggestion, which I unfortunately didn't get back to him, was the community is so used to us starting at 7 o'clock for open that we might have some repercussions for the community. I would prefer like starting early if that's so. Here's my proposal: is that for the June 11th board meeting, we will start at 4, and we will do open, get some reports done or whatever we got to. Well, we got to plan the agenda. Then we will go back into closed at 5. 5:30, and hopefully be done, and then back into open by 7, okay? Let's try that for June 11th. If it doesn't work, we'll adjust it for the 25th, okay? Is that all right? So hopefully we can have a quorum here for 4 o'clock on the 11th of June, so. Okay, any other business for tonight? All righty, thank you, and we will take a motion now for adjournment. Moved by Mr. Connor. Second by Mr. Siegel. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned at 9:22. Thank you. So, Laura, when we do agenda planning, we're going to have